So as we fastly approach October 25th, which is the release of the very controversial Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack, in today's video, I thought it would be a fun idea to go down memory lane and talk through all of the N64 games that will be available at launch, my personal experiences with those games, and ranking them from my least anticipated to most anticipated game to play at the launch of the Nintendo 64 online service. What's up, Nation? If it's your first time on the channel, make sure you join Sunbro Nation by subscribing below, hit the like button on this video if you enjoy it today, and make sure you turn on your bell notification icon so you're kept up to date with all the newest gaming news. Now, as I mentioned, guys, we're not just doing a traditional news video today because, of course, it's the weekend and we're about to walk into next week, which is Monday, October 25th, and that means the launch of Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack, which is obviously controversial, but that's not what we're talking about today. I do plan on signing up for this service, and I think it would be a fun conversation to have about my initial experiences with these N64 titles that will be available at launch, not the ones that we know are planned down the line, but specifically all the games that are available at launch. And I will be going through these in my list of least anticipated to most anticipated, and you know, some of them are relatively close. Like, it's not like I'm down on any of these titles or not excited for any of them, but there is definitely some that I am more pumped to play than others. So I do want to start off the list with Sin and Punishment as my least anticipated title, and it's not because I haven't heard good things about it or that it may be a quality game. It's just that I have no hands-on experience with this game whatsoever, hence it has no nostalgia for me. But I do know it is described as an on-rail shooter, and this only saw a release in Japan back in 2000, and it definitely had its fair share of fans out there, but I never have played the series myself. I know we also got a successor on the Wii that was released, and I did not pick up that either, so I will be going into this one completely blind with open expectations. I'm really not sure what to expect other than the fact that it's an on-rail shooter style of game. Hopefully it's very fun though and very enjoyable, and I will absolutely boot it up and check it out. But again, in terms of the ranking out of the 9 games that are available at release on the N64, this one will be the one that I do not know what to expect, so it is of course at the bottom of my list. But I will be excited to check out Sin and Punishment for the first time on October 25th at release. Now, next up, coming in at number 8 is Dr. Mario 64, and this is, you know, a fun one to play with friends specifically. I don't see myself ever booting this game up and actually just playing single player, but you know, every now and then I get in the mood for these Tetris puzzle style games, and I could definitely see myself having some friends over and playing this, as I did play it briefly on the N64. I did not own it myself, but I have played it over at other friends' house back in the day, and I actually have more nostalgia for the SNES version of Dr. Mario, as that's the one that I owned, and I did play that one on my own sometime. But obviously they are very similar games in terms of the SNES to N64 one, with the N64 just getting the upgrade in graphics. And I do believe that this will have online multiplayer, so that very well may be worth checking out. But outside of occasionally booting it up just for a fun online multiplayer session, I don't see myself playing this one very much. Now, number 7 on our list today is Winback, and I actually have some very specific memories of this game, as one of my best friends actually owned it, and we played through it, traded off the controller back and forth through the entire campaign multiple times, and I really did enjoy this game from start to finish, as you have a third-person perspective. And at the time, this is when, you know, these shooter-style games are really starting to become popular, definitely most namely GoldenEye and Perfect Dark, but they, of course, offered first-person perspectives, and Winback kind of went a different direction with a third-person perspective and almost has some like Metal Gear Solid style gameplay. I don't want to rank it up too high, as you know, it definitely has some clunkiness to it, but there's definitely some stealth sections as you're trying to sneak through the level and not get caught, and then you definitely get into some intense fast-paced action and combat at certain phases of the game. So I personally do have very fond memories of playing through Winback. I don't know how it's aged because I was very young when I played it at the time, and I will be curious to see how the mechanics feel today in 2021. But definitely a game that I will have high up on my list in terms of anticipation to go back and replay through as part of the N64 online expansion pack. Now, next up on my list at number 6 is Mario Tennis, and I can see myself having hours of fun in the 4-player multiplayer mode that this game does support. You can, of course, play 1v1, but it is a lot of fun if you have multiple friends and you guys can do the 2v2 route, because you kind of have to communicate and figure out who's closer to the ball or who can have the better shot. And of course, there's a lot of different fun to be had with this title, mainly around multiplayer for me, but it does, of course, have single player options as well. And you know, the cool thing about this game is the multiple gameplay modes that it has. I can't remember if they're all available in multiplayer or if I'm more remembering them from single player, but I know there's definitely some board modes where the maps actually move back and forth and you have to like dodge green shells as they fly at you, and the mechanics feel very good overall, as you can definitely pick up and play it without too much frustration whatsoever. But there is a balancing art to actually getting the hit pressure figured out each time for every type of move, and based off how fast the ball's coming at you and how much time you have to charge up your shot before you fire it back. Like, it's a tennis game, it's a Mario tennis game. It's nothing revolutionary, but it is one I'm excited to hop back into, especially for the multiplayer aspect of this title. And coming in at number 5 on my list is none other than Yoshis Story. And apparently the online reaction to this game, which you know, of course, when I was a kid playing through it, I never looked online. Like, online was not even a thing for me back then. But apparently the online reaction to this game is not as good as I thought it would have been, because I have very fond memories of this. Of course, it was marketed towards younger kids, and it actually had more simplistic gameplay than something like Yoshi's Island, which was Super Mario World 2 back on the SNES. And I still absolutely love that game. But, you know, Yoshi's Story was kind of trying to take that same mechanic but give Yoshi his own standalone title, as opposed to having Baby Mario on your back the whole time. And I remember booting up this game as a kid and enjoying every single minute of it, as the art style and the colors are very impressive. You can obviously be multiple different colors of Yoshis, but they really don't change their abilities, if I'm remembering that right. So it's not like the most revolutionary game by any means, but I remember thoroughly enjoying this from start to finish. Definitely had some interesting environments to go through, multiple different castles and boss battles were like that stuck out to me, that I'm very excited to replay through this. And this will be one of my single player adventures that I plan on fully completing again, and I will probably do it relatively soon after the service launches, as I don't think the game is quite super long or anything like that. And I think this will be one to play in the OLED model if you do have that, as the colors really do stick out to me as a really cool art style, and they're definitely bright and vibrant. So I will be very excited to replay through Yoshi's Story when it releases on the expansion pack on the 25th. Coming in at number 4 on my list is Mario Kart 64, and wow, the multiplayer in this game. This will absolutely be the one that takes up the bulk of the online play from this entire initial launch, in my opinion, as, you know, obviously games like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe get played probably the most online in the Nintendo Switch today, if not maybe Smash Bros. But I think that this will be a trip down memory lane for many older gamers, myself included, as, you know, the mechanics are a little bit more simple in this game. I remember kind of turning on a dime. Like, you don't have to necessarily drift into turns to be effective like you do in the newer games. Like, you really do, whenever you shift that analog stick, you're just going straight that direction. And it has a ton of awesome tracks that I have nostalgia for, that I will be excited to replay on my Switch. And of course, the 4-player online multiplayer will be the main draw for this, and I do believe that you will be able to do the battle mode in that 4-player online mode as well, which is definitely where the majority of my hours were spent on this title the first time around. As you know, it's always fun whenever you have the 3 balloons on your back and you're trying to hit your friends and talking trash to each other and throwing bob-ombs and green shells and red shells. And so it's a lot of fun for me. I know there's like a block stage where you have to go up a bunch of different levels, like 3 or 4 different levels, and sometimes you could drop off a corner and land right next to somebody when they didn't expect it. Like, the battle mode games are definitely where it's at for me. Obviously, you can go through Grand Prix single player mode and play through all of the tracks and stages in racing form, but I will for sure be hopping into battle mode on this game to relive some of those nostalgic memories, and Mario Kart 64 will definitely be booted up right away once it launches here on the 25th. Now, number 3 on my list was a hard pick because it was a toss-up between where 2 and 3 land, but I'm going with Star Fox 64, as I just absolutely loved every single minute of playing this game as a kid. It is obviously a space-based shooter. You do have some land sections as well where you're in the Landmaster, but for the most part, most of the stages, if I'm remembering correctly, do take place in the sky, and it is a 3D shooter that obviously you can charge up your shots, dodge asteroids, have a bunch of various enemies on screen that you have to worry about at the same time, and you have to progress and get through them. And then you have, you know, your classic meme culture that has come from this game, which is do a barrel roll, that we will hear once again once this game launches. And I'm very excited to replay through the entire campaign. I actually never really dove into the multiplayer on this game at all, but I did go through the single player numerous times, probably upwards of 10 to 15 times. It's not that long of a single player, but it's so much fun, and I always have a memory of that final boss fight against Andros being pretty crazy and difficult. So I will be excited to dive back into this. There was also an interesting thing at the time that I remember sticking out to me that wasn't really traditional in other games at that point, and that's that in the overworld, when you're selecting like which level you want to go to next, you can actually skip one or two of them if you just pick one direction or another. And that was like a unique thing that stuck out to me, because I can't remember any other game that I'd played really in that time that would allow me to do that. Actually, now that I'm saying that, I'm thinking about how like Super Mario World that I played on the SNES definitely lets you do that, but it just felt different in the Star Fox game. And you know, I'm really excited. I think that Star Fox 64 personally for me is the pinnacle of the series. I know there's been some good installments since then, but I really have the most nostalgia for this one, and it sticks out to me more than any others in the series. And you guys will know, if you've been around on the channel for a while, I've been advocating for a future release of a new Star Fox game on Switch, and really something that gets a ton of love and attention, as I think that that series can have a second life and a second chance on the Switch, and maybe sell better than it ever has in the series history if they really did a Star Fox game right. But that's what Star Fox 64 is for me, so I will be super happy to replay through the single player on this game and check out the multiplayer for the first time. Now, number 2 on the list is none other than the classic Mario 64, as the nostalgia for this game is absolutely there. And even though I did just recently 100% this when it released as part of the Mario 3D All-Stars collection, it is still one that I enjoy replaying frequently, and I will be excited to redo it again. I don't know if this is the exact same version as what the Mario 3D All-Stars collection had, so if I want to replay this game, I may just go back to the 3D All-Stars version of it. But it is one that I definitely will enjoy having as part of this service, because I definitely thought that, the fact that Mario 3D All-Stars was only limited run, this was one of the games that was a problem for me on there, that like, why will you not give us the ability to play this game? So at least now, as we go forward into the future, there will be a way to always be able to pick up and play Mario 64, as this was really the base model game for what 3D platforming has become, and it just did a fantastic job with level design. And obviously you had multiple stars you could get in each stage. This was the introduction of the 100 coin star that I really thought was cool, that even whenever you were done with the 6 traditional stars in each stage, you had to go figure out how to get 100 coins in one run through so you could get that bonus 100 coin star. And there's just a lot of fun little hidden things that you can dive into in this game. Of course, if you are going to play it, you got to get all 120 stars and go meet your friend on the roof at the end of the game. And there's just a lot of fun to be had. I also forgot how hard some of the boss fights are, because Bowser, when you come across him for the 3rd time and have to throw him by the tail into the spike ball that's on screen, it can be a very hard shot to line up, and I ended up dying quite a few times on my last playthrough of this game. And it's just one that ages beautifully. Like, it's actually a game that, even though there's some wonky camera stuff that happens every now and then, you can really pick up and play this like any other Mario game and have a bunch of fun right out of the gate. So I will be excited to replay through this one again as it comes in at number 2 on the list. Now, you've probably been able to guess at this point which the number 1 title, most anticipated game on the N64 expansion pack is for me, and that is none other than Zelda Ocarina of Time, and I cannot wait to replay this game again. Now, I have beaten this game, I don't know how many times as a kid, probably 30, 40 plus, and then I've replayed it every time it's been re-released or available on the other consoles, such as the GameCube, the Wii, the 3DS, and even the Wii U and the eShop. You can download this thing, and I've replayed it on all of those consoles. I am still most excited to go back through and play this one again, as it is just the most incredible 3D Zelda experience. It's the first installment that we saw as a 3D Zelda, and it did such a great job creating the lore and story that Zelda games would ultimately have to offer, really showing how Hyrule was created to begin with. And also, if you have played through Skyward Sword HD, definitely look for some of the story arc parts that pay off, because Skyward Sword HD did a great job of laying the groundwork for what happens in this game story-wise. But again, this is one that is, if you don't believe me, it is actually reviewed as the highest game of all time when it comes to Metacritic scores, as it is still sitting at a 99 review score, and this game came out in 1990 98. I have a very vivid memory of the first time I saw this game. I want to say I was 8 or 9 years old, and I was over at a friend's house, and here I am seeing Link actually ride on a horse in a giant open field, and my mind was immediately blown. Like, that was not something you saw in games back then, whenever you were only used to looking at the 2D style games like I was at the time from the SNES, and then you see this giant vast open world in 3D. And by the way, Link can use his bow on this back of Epona. Like, I was just already mesmerized, and it wasn't until a couple years later when I would actually finally get that game myself, and this is the one that I could not stop playing, as it just has so much fun replay value. To do the 100% run, you have to find all the gold Skulltulas, which is like a crazy task in and of itself, and they are hidden everywhere throughout the world. There's obviously tons of unique puzzles and dungeons and boss fights, and I mean, the game just delivers on all fronts, and it deserves that best reviewed Metacritic game of all time, in my opinion, as it did so much for the future of 3D games that a lot of us don't even realize. Like, this was maybe, I think, the first game that had a lock-on mechanic, so you could actually lock onto an enemy and circle around it and stay focused on it, and your camera would move with your character, and you didn't realize how big of a deal that would be to the future of 3D games. Like, some of the real core mechanics of all 3D action adventure games that we have played in the years to come actually originated from Ocarina of Time. Not to mention, the soundtrack is absolutely next level, and I get goosebumps most of the time I hear Zelda's Lullaby or other ones that just take me back to those memories. Every dungeon that you went to when you were adult Link had its own song tied to it, and you know, you just have so much incredible experiences to be had in this game. And if somebody out there hasn't played it, maybe you're a newer Nintendo fan and you came into the Zelda series through something like Breath of the Wild, is obviously that's the best-selling one out there so far. You have to go back and see what created the 3D Zelda formula and what took this story and the lore of what Zelda would ultimately become to the next level, and that was none other than Ocarina of Time. So this is top on my list. The next one on my list, if I could venture into the most anticipated game from the upcoming titles that we know to expect, would definitely be Majora's Mask, because what Ocarina of Time has, Majora's Mask does not, and what Majora's Mask has, Ocarina of Time does not. They are very different games, and they complement each other perfectly. So I would definitely recommend all the Zelda fans out there to replay through both of them. But this will be the #1 first game that I boot up when I do purchase this Nintendo 64 expansion pack, and I cannot wait to recomplete it on my Nintendo Switch and be able to take it on the go in the OLED model. So I have a lot of reason to be super hyped for this service. While I'm not excited about the price, the games that are there and that will hopefully be added in the future do at least make it worth it for me to pay the exorbitant price and sign up day one. So I want to hear from you guys at this point in the video what your personal most anticipated games are. If you had to stack rank them in your own list, go ahead and share that in the comments, or at least just give me your #1 game that you cannot wait to go relive on the N64 as part of the Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack. So make sure you share your thoughts and feelings on all things we talked about today in the comments down below. Thanks so much for watching the video today, everyone. I do truly appreciate you all sticking around until the end. I do at this point in the video want to invite you all one more time to join Sunbro Nation if you haven't done so already. Do so by subscribing below, hit the like button on your way out if you enjoyed it today, and make sure you turn on your bell notification icon so you're kept up to date with all the newest gaming news. That's going to do it for me, guys. I hope you all have a great day. Sunbro Nation, out.